Welcome to Good for Bitcoin, a weekly show recorded live every Friday, where we recap the top events of the week and talk about everything that is good for Bitcoin. If it's built on Bitcoin, then it's good for Bitcoin. Let's get started.
Content shared on this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute financial, investment, or legal advice. The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and do not reflect the official policy or position of any other agency, organization, or company. We encourage you to conduct your own research and consult with a qualified professional before making any financial decisions.
Well, hello, everybody. Oh my gosh, what a crazy week it has been. It has been so crazy that I forgot to plug in my microphone. So apologies for the silence. Welcome to Good for Bitcoin. My name is Brandon, social media manager here at Trust Machines. Kate is out today, but we do have Longstreet here. Longstreet, happy Friday, sir.
Brandon, happy Friday, man. Happy Bitcoin new all-time high week.
Yeah, what a week it has been. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I hesitated to call this the best for Bitcoin week. Because some people might not think that, but what a crazy week. As we are speaking, Bitcoin is hovering around 77K, new all-time high. So there has been multiple days of new all-time highs this week, and we are just back in it. And even though Bitcoin is soaring, and we have a new Bitcoin president that we're going to get into. We have only a couple topics to talk about this week, but they are obviously very big topics. So we're going to spend a lot of time talking about each one. But yeah, what a week it's been. How has your week been? Maybe being outside of the U.S. and just kind of observing everything that's been going on. How has your week been?
Yeah, obviously I'm 9 hours ahead of Pacific, 6 hours ahead of East Coast. So I went to sleep Tuesday night not really knowing what to expect, right? But I woke up on my birthday, actually. I woke up my birthday to see new Bitcoin all-time high, which felt like a gift. And then I knew what the results were just because of that. So then I kind of tried to spend the day celebrating with my wife. The kids were at school, and we went to a local city and celebrated my birthday. And I tried to have some restraint on like checking prices and checking notifications. So yeah, I mean, it was from a distance. I also had the opportunity to talk with people in France, a lot of locals, about what they thought. It's not on anyone's radar, or for some people it's not on their radar, and for a lot of other people they're very much dialed in. They were really surprised by this. They didn't see it coming, and I think one thing that people who are listening, who are in this ecosystem, is that they probably did see it coming. And this is actually a thought that I had. We have spent a lot of time talking about polymarket and prediction markets. And I was suspicious that the big discrepancy between polymarket versus a lot of the polls, I thought that could have been a result of the crypto Twitter echo chamber. But I could not have been more wrong in that suspicion, because they just nailed it. They nailed it. They had better information somehow. It's kind of crazy how the decentralized markets can identify the truth. So that's one thing that I've been reflecting on, is how powerful the prediction markets can be and how they got this right early.
Yeah, I agree. I think that French whale really made the right decision of who to bet for. I wonder how much did they make off of that bet? Has to have been a lot.
For how much the bet was?
I think it was like 40 million, something, some crazy amount. 14 million, maybe it wasn't that high. Maybe it was like 14.
And I think that was when it was like kind of more 50-50.
Yes.
Big Trump lead.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think it wasn't something that I think anybody was looking at, because it was sort of just an assumption just for how previous kind of U.S. presidential races have gone. But I don't know if the popular vote was very accurate until pretty last minute into kind of all the vote tallying. I think everyone pretty heartily assumed that was going to go to Harris, just because that's just the way that things go usually in the U.S.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, for Trump to win, popular vote as well, it really it's a big message, I think, for America, that this is, that basically the U.S. citizens want change, and I think a majority of people that were voting probably weren't doing it for Bitcoin or crypto reasons. There's probably a lot of other things. I think just more economy in general, but crypto certainly came to play, during this election. I think it had a huge effect on the outcome, and yeah, so much to get into. It was so interesting. I stayed up. I'm on Pacific time, so I stayed up a little bit later. I think it was around midnight or so when it kind of finally got called, and Trump came out and did his kind of speech. But it was so interesting to see as the votes were being tallied, because of time zones, the East Coast always comes first, and then it kind of makes a wave over to the West Coast over the next like several hours as the votes get counted. And every time that a new state kind of declared, votes started to come in and they started to predict the outcome of each state, whether it went red or blue, you would see the Bitcoin price go up or down. And it was very, very reactive to this election. That was just something that was really interesting to see. We've talked about how Bitcoin itself is almost a bit of a prediction market in its own for this election. And certainly, it seems, that it's continuing to go up, as we just talked about with the all-time highs hitting over 77K just in the past hour. So yeah, super interesting to see, that the outcome of, like you said, with Polymarket and these other prediction markets and how accurate they ended up being.
Truly. And I think that for a lot of Americans, they probably still have a pretty fresh recollection of what happened over the last 3 years with Bitcoin and crypto, with the FTX collapse. Like, I think a lot of people probably are still writing it off, and maybe they see it coming up in the news, but they're probably still like in the 4-year-old narratives or 3-year-old or 2-year-old, like that, it's only for scammers and it's bad for the environment. And they haven't been incentivized to change their models. And I think that this now, this, like you mentioned, especially with the popular vote on Polymarket, like there was a big discrepancy there. Like Polymarket was calling that Harris was going to get the popular vote, and it wasn't even close with that. Like, this is such a clear, decisive victory for Trump that instead of having a conversation like, oh, where was the corruption? Where did the fake votes come from? Like, that's not part of the narrative. The narrative is now like, where, if you're like on the left, on the Democratic side, like, where did we make mistakes? Where were the missteps? And what do we need to learn? How do we reflect going forward? And I think part of that reflection process is this awareness that crypto, you have to have a stance on Bitcoin and crypto. And, we've been saying that for a long time, people in our ecosystem. It's been obvious for us. So I think that's going to be part of the evolution of the majority of, of the country. And we've been seeing news about more senators having a pro-Bitcoin stance here. Dennis Porter, one of my favorite Bitcoiners in Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., was, I'll see if I can pull up the tweet, but I said like something like 250 senators are now pro-crypto, pro-Bitcoin. So yeah, it's pretty clear now that the approach of either neglecting to have a Bitcoin crypto stance or being anti-crypto, that's not a sustainable model anymore. It's not worth it. You're not going to gain anyone for that.
Yeah, certainly true. There were, I think, a few upsets as well. I think like Sherrod Brown was one of them. Yeah, there's a few kind of upsets of people that are kind of either got voted in or got voted out, in large part, I think, because of their stance on crypto. So not just on the electoral level, on the presidential level, but also kind of on the smaller kind of state level. And I was just looking at Polymarket as well. So on November 4th, on the day like the morning of November 4th, the popular vote winner for Polymarket, Donald Trump was projected 26%.
Wow.
So huge discrepancy. And I think it's interesting just because so many people, so many people on social, right, are saying like, oh, Polymarket was so correct. So this is kind of like a little bit of that kind of like narrative violation, right? Of that, like it wasn't 100% correct. All right. That's a huge discrepancy with people predicting that Donald Trump would win the popular vote, but only 26% of people predicted that. So pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah. And there was such a huge difference in liquidity and volume with those two. So yeah, it's kind of like that was the biggest thing on Polymarket. So definitely you had the volume there with the who's going to win the electoral college. And then, popular vote, that's kind of just, it really doesn't mean anything other than like narrative and a talking point. So yeah, it had a fraction of the liquidity. So I guess we can contribute the lack of accuracy potentially to just the volume being lower.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I didn't look to see what the difference is with volume, but yeah, I'm sure it was much lower. I don't know if our French friend bet on that one or not.
Spend the rest of my life looking for him.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of news to get into. We're going to continue talking about this, but I want to go back to just some of the announcements on the trust machines and Leather side for this week. So, for one, kind of one of the bigger campaigns that we did this week was our campaign with Pizza Pets, which was so fun. We had so many opportunities for our users to participate and win. We had a really big giveaway on X that I think was like a 4-day giveaway or so. So many people kind of contributing and participating there. But one thing that was really fun that Kate's not here, but she really led was these contests and giveaways on our Discord and on our Zeely. So one thing that was really cool to sort of kind of incentivize people to join our Discord and to wait and be active was she did these like flash giveaways each day. So basically she picked kind of a random time each day. We tried to kind of capture all time zones. So people that, no matter what time zone you were in, you could participate. But basically she would randomly post, and the first 10 people to reply to that post with their ordinal's address. And then I think she was also saying, hey, you need to give your pizza pet a name. So it wasn't just the address, it was the name. First 10 people to reply, got it. And she did one of those each day this week. So that was super fun. And then we also have our Zeely campaign. So people that participated in the quests automatically were entered to win on the Zeely side as well. And I think we gave out 50 or maybe 60 on the Zeely side. So super fun. We love working with Trevor, the Pizza Ninjas, Megapont. Yeah, so such a great team to work with. We always love when we have the opportunity to work with them. And yeah, I'm very excited for the Pizza Pets. I think maybe launching next week. I don't know if we have a specific date yet, but they're saying soon at least that it'll be launching. So that's something that we have to look forward to.
Yeah, nice. Sometime in November. Definitely November.
Yes. Yeah, and then you hosted with Kate, Leather Lounge. Well, kind of the start or maybe end of season 2, kicking off season 3 with a nice little clip show to kind of reminisce on some of the really great guests that we've had this past summer, this past season.
Yeah, exactly. That was such a good opportunity to reflect on the wide variety of people. And as I was looking back, this season reached back all the way until June and July. And what was clear after I zoomed out is that Bitcoin means so many different things to different people. We had founders, builders, people talking about Bitcoin as a store of value, what it means for banking the unbanked around the world and access to banking. We talked about artists, platforms like Gamma, Aeons. We had art advocates up on the show. So it was a really good recap. And I kind of spent the day going through the podcast feed and pulling out little clips. And so I highly encourage everyone to listen back on that. It was a good recap. I mean, I could have spent twice as much time sharing twice as many clips, but it was a good summary of the highlights of season 2. So we're looking forward to season 3.
Yeah, so many gems. Yeah, I think one of the things that, listening back to a lot of those clips, one of the things that resonated with me was we've talked a lot about on this show about how speculation is kind of one of the main drivers of people kind of getting into Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a good reminder that that's not the case for everybody. A lot of the people, especially on kind of the art side of things, a lot of people got into it for, some of the just amazing properties that Bitcoin has, like its immutability, right? The ordinals side of things, like the ability to store these things on chain and have them kind of live forever. So just, those facts I think were super interesting to just kind of, reflect on, just how people get into the space. And it's just a good reminder that it's not always because of number go up, although, that sometimes has a big reason for people coming in.
Truly. And it's also a reflection that Bitcoin can be more inclusive. The Bitcoin maximalist from 4 years ago, that narrative is completely gone. Bitcoin is flexible. We can have smart contracts through stacks and other layer 2s that settle onto Bitcoin. So you have decentralized storage, and then you also have the store of value. So yes, it's so many things, and the future is bright. It's very inspiring to see, especially Aaron. Aaron was on the 31st. So I highly recommend, if I had to only recommend one episode to listen to from season 2, I think that would be the one, because they approached it from multiple perspectives. So yeah, I'd say go check out the October 31st show with Aaron and Natasha Postwook.
Yeah, great episode to celebrate the Bitcoin white paper and Halloween and the spooky vibes and astrology. And yeah, I agree. That was one of my favorites of the season as well. And I also hosted sort of I don't know if I want to call it impromptu, because it's been something that we've been wanting to do for a while. But yesterday we hosted a kind of .locker space for the BNS community, which was something that I think was long overdue. I was really excited that we were able to connect with the community a little bit more with .locker and have kind of some challenging questions and challenging conversations about kind of how .locker sort of fits into the ethos of BNS, which is such a decentralized thing. And it was so great because we got the opportunity to have even Manib join for a little bit to talk about it. So that was so cool. Obviously, Manib is so busy right now with Nakamoto and preparing for SBTC. So just to have him come on and talk a little bit about his vision for .locker was really, really cool. But yeah, I really valued the discussion that happened yesterday. I think just to sort of summarize, when we announced .locker, I think, the BNS community is very passionate about .btc and about decentralization, and as they should be, right? These are all things that as Bitcoiners we all care about a lot, and the BNS itself has a deep, long history with Bitcoin, right? It's been around for almost as long as Bitcoin has, kind of getting its roots from Namecoin, which was something that Satoshi himself actually contributed to. So very, very long history of BNS. And, .locker comes out as something that is, affiliated with ICANN, which is about the most centralized thing you could think of, this most centralized organization you could think of. And, to some, I think in the BNS community, it almost felt like a little bit of a threat of like, you're coming in, maybe trying to centralize. And I think it was important, we heard from Manib and Don and Rena and myself also talking about it. I think it's important to sort of talk about how .locker is trying to kind of grow the pie of BNS, right? It is not trying to compete with or replace .btc names necessarily, right? It is kind of targeted for newcomers that are coming into the space. They don't even know what BNS is. They probably don't even know what Stacks is. Maybe they've heard of Bitcoin, right? But this is for like the newbies that are coming into the space that we're trying to onboard and bring them into Bitcoin and set them up with a leather wallet and for the first time. So it's kind of the target audience is completely different for something like Locker, which is a little bit more on the centralized kind of spectrum versus BTC, which is very decentralized, right? It's incredibly decentralized. It's just working on smart contracts, and there's no party that's issuing names or anything like that. So I think it was good to have kind of a heart to heart with the BNS community. I do hope that there's not really like there's not really somebody that's leading sort of BNS community like Twitter spaces on the regular or anything like that. That's something that I'd really love to see. I don't think that it's like Locker's place to be, hosting something like that, right? I think that's kind of a community-driven thing that should happen. So, but that being said, I'd love to join those spaces so we can have kind of a continued dialogue there. But yeah, I think it was overall a overdue and productive conversation that we had with the community yesterday, and hopefully we'll do more of those, and hopefully we'll have kind of some more spaces to join in the future that are kind of led by the community that we can participate in.
Well, I was able to listen in for a little bit, and I was really happy to see, because I really do sympathize with where BNS community is coming from. So it was really good to have that clarity. Can you gave us a little bit of a recap, but can you tell us more about what the process has been like for Locker working with ICANN? Where does and how Don's background was so useful and necessary for this?
Yeah, I think, coming for us kind of that are more Web3 native, right? We're used to kind of an NFT collection dropping and then immediately, it sells out, right? Like on the domain side, it's very, very different. On the Web2 side, it's very, very different, right? We did not expect hundreds of thousands of domains on day one. It's just that's just not how it works. That was actually a question that I had for Don. That was one of the first questions that I had for him, because he does have such an extensive sort of background on the domain side. He previously worked for Automatic. He previously launched .blog as a domain, and he's been kind of in the reseller domain space for a long time before he joined Orange Domains. So he has some knowledge there for sure. And yeah, he was saying, when you kind of compare the launch of Locker compared to some of the other kind of TLDs that have launched in the past year or so, it's pretty similar, I think, in terms of its success, for like initial registrations and things like that. But this isn't just a regular domain, right? There's a whole Web3 component of setting up your BNS name. So for us, it's kind of the work is really just beginning on the education side of educating people why, claiming your Web3 name is important. Why that identity is so valuable to have in the Web3 space. So that's our challenge on the marketing side. Is we're not necessarily marketing to Web3 users; we're marketing to Web2 users, and that's a completely different ball game, and not something that I personally am used to doing these days. So that's the challenge. Is the marketing for this new cohort of people that we're trying to bring into the space, and to get them to familiarize themselves with this world of Bitcoin and stacks and BNS and Web3, and giving them use cases and different things to do so that they can jump in and start playing around with all the fun things that are going on. So that's one of the bigger challenges.
Well, that brings us to the bridge building that will be inevitable in the near future, especially now that, the president and the House and the Senate are all Republican now. It's kind of like the headwinds are gone, the roadblocks are removed. So it's go time now. And I think that we've all, especially in America, have felt very siloed in and stifled with a relatively slowly growing ecosystem. And now we are really going to be entering this growth phase where we need a lot of these bridges to be built between Web 2, Web 3. Now that there's going to be just a slurry of activity, it's the bridge building that needs to happen. And then, by the way, you did a great job of hosting and emceeing that conversation. So flowers to you, Brandon.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. Hopefully we'll do some more of them. The BNS community, super passionate. I always enjoy getting tagged in their BNS community Discord, so I could have the opportunity to answer questions and stuff like that. Very active community in there. So yeah, it was a good time. And maybe a preview for early next week's a small bit of alpha. Leather will be finalizing their BNS V2 support. So BNS V2 will be supported in Leather. I think we'll be the first wallet to be offering that. So look out for an announcement there next week, early next week. So you'll actually be able to send Bitcoin and stacks and everything else to a .locker and to, this new BNS standard for all the other existing BNS names that are out there.
Nice. Well, should we jump back to Trump being the president and president-elect and what that means, the promises that he's made? What's that going to look like?
Yeah, I thought it would be helpful. We played this clip kind of when it first happened, but for maybe those that forgot or maybe missed it, I wanted to play it again. This is kind of a supercut of the main things that he promised during his speech at the Bitcoin conference. Mm-hmm. And his speech, I think, was like 40 minutes or so. So there was a lot of filler, I should say, in that speech. But I do have like a super cut of that's just a minute or two of the actual things that he promised. So let's listen to that for a minute, and then we'll kind of we can talk a little bit about each one.
Hello, Bitcoiners. Thank you very much. Hello, it's good to be with you. This afternoon, I'm laying out my plan to ensure that the United States will be the crypto capital of the planet and the Bitcoin superpower of the world. If crypto is going to define the future, I want to be mined, minted, and made in the USA. The moment I'm sworn in, the persecution stops and the weaponization ends against your industry. On day one, I will fire Gary Gensler and appoint a new SEC chairman. I didn't know he was that unpopular. Let me say it again. On day one, I will fire Gary Gensler. Whoa. As president, I will immediately shut down Operation Choke Point 2.0. Upon taking office, I will immediately appoint a Bitcoin and Crypto Presidential Advisory Council. Their task will be to design transparent regulatory guidance for the benefit of the entire industry, and they will get it done in 100 days. There will never be a CBDC while I'm president of the United States. And I will always defend the right to self-custody. We will create a framework to enable the safe and responsible expansion of stable coins. I have set the ambitious goal that by the end of my term, the United States will be the #1 lowest cost of energy and electricity of any nation on earth. The federal government has almost 210,000 Bitcoin, or 1% of the total supply that will ever exist. But for too long, our government has violated the cardinal rule that every Bitcoiner knows by heart: never sell your Bitcoin. And so, as the final part of my plan today, I am announcing that if I am elected, it will be the policy of my administration, United States of America, to keep 100% of all the Bitcoin the U.S. government currently holds or acquires into the future. This will serve in effect as the core of the strategic national Bitcoin stockpile. And so as I take steps to transform that vast wealth into a permanent national asset to benefit all Americans, today I repeat my pledge to commute the sentence of Ross Ulbricht to a sentence of time served. Thank you all. Have a good time with your Bitcoin and your crypto and everything else that you're playing with. Thank you.
So there you go. So interesting promises. So let's go through some of these. So first one, the one that I think got the most applause was firing Gary Gensler and appointing a new SEC chair. So much that he repeated it. He was surprised at the response to that. And I think the the Fed and the SEC chair, I think, work a little bit differently, where as president, you can't just like fire somebody for no reason. Like there has to be a little bit of like recourse there. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that plays out. I think it's not just as easy as him just saying you're fired. There's a little bit more of a due process, I think, with some of these other organizations.
Well, that doesn't stop him from making promises.
Yeah, well, that's partially why I wanted to kind of go over these. Is now that he is president-elect, now we need to hold him accountable for these clear promises, that he made. And I think a lot of the Bitcoiners that have been very close, to Trump, they're gonna hold him to a lot of these things. But super interesting to look back at some of the promises that he made. Next one is less kind of doing something, and it's just more not doing something, which is to sort of cease this Operation Choke Point 2.0, which is kind of the weaponization against banks or against crypto companies from basically having bank accounts. It makes it much more difficult for crypto companies in the U.S. to operate if they can't have bank accounts, right? You can't pay your employees. You can't do all the business activities that you typically need to do. So, ending that is going to have a huge effect. And this, Operation Choke Point 2.0 is something that has driven away a lot of innovation out of the U.S. And you could argue, that a lot of things like FTX, for example, right, that couldn't operate in the U.S. and had to go elsewhere. So then, U.S. citizens went elsewhere, and look at what happened, right? So by leaving the U.S., you're exiting, a lot of the protections that the U.S. would typically offer, and that is harming, U.S. citizens at the end of the day. So really welcome to see this finally come to an end, hopefully, when he gets sworn in.
Truly. And Nick Carter is really the one to follow on this. He's the one who coined the term Operation Choke Point 2.0 and has been doing a lot of the research on this. So definitely keep Nick Carter's tweets close in your notifications, because he's the one to watch on this. Yeah,
Nick is a fantastic follow. Highly recommend following Nick. Just in general, he's a very smart man. I think,
super fans over here. You listen regularly to what's the show he has?
On the Brink. His with Castle Island. Very good podcast. Yeah. You might see some similarities between this show and his show, to be honest with you, because it's pretty good.
Nice.
So moving on, commuting the sentence of Ross Ulbright to time served. There was a really touching tweet that came out. I think it was on the day of, the election results from Ross's kind of team, saying that, this will be the last Thanksgiving that Ross will, not be spending with his family. Just a really good reminder that, I think his mom has been advocating for a long time, to obviously, to get him out. And just really, really kind of touching that his sacrifice, he's almost been like somewhat of a martyr for Bitcoin, for early Bitcoiners. And, as many believe, was kind of unfairly punished for Silk Road. So to have him, the Free Ross, campaign finally coming to a close is just a really exciting thing to be happening.
Yeah. And I don't know how ambitious that is of a goal to be able to have that promise of free Ross on day one. But here's the thing with quote unquote Bitcoiners, like you're doing right now, playing the clip, there's a laundry list of things that we are keeping track of. And if Trump is missing the mark too much, it's going to start getting ugly. This is a very loud, vocal group that punches above our weight. So we'll see how focused he's going to be on these laundry lists of promises.
Yeah, I mean, something like that is a very easily measurable, easily actionable thing, right? Yeah. So if that doesn't happen, it's pretty obvious. So that's definitely a good point. Okay, some of the other things that he mentioned. So within the first 100 days, he will appoint a Bitcoin and crypto advisory council to design regulatory guidance to benefit the entire industry. He later on mentioned the responsible expansion of stablecoins, and yeah, that is certainly something that going back to things that U.S. crypto companies have been asking for is clarity, just regulatory clarity.
Yeah.
So that is definitely something to look forward to. And he said explicitly within the first 100 days. So another thing to hold him to. He promised that there would be no CBDCs during his presidency. He promised to defend the right to self-custody. He talked about U.S. being the #1 lowest cost of energy of any nation on Earth, which is something that definitely benefits Bitcoin miners. And one of the bigger ones that was something that I was so proud to have predicted was his administration will keep 100% of the Bitcoin the U.S. government currently holds or acquires to serve as the U.S. quote national Bitcoin stockpile and as a quote permanent national asset.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, but here's the thing, it's a start. And we saw Senator Lummis follow him. And then she took it the next step and she said, we need to do more than just not sell the Bitcoin we have. We need to have a strategic reserve plan and we need to acquire more. And that she's getting a lot of wind in her sails right now too. And deservedly so, because she is now really taking the torch and she's the voice to follow on the National Bitcoin Reserve. Because yes, step 1, don't sell the Bitcoin. Step 2, acquire more.
Yeah, and there was this tweet that went a little bit viral yesterday of this Chinese TV news station that in the report it basically said, it's talking about Trump winning the presidency, and it said that Trump will make the U.S. the world's crypto capital and establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve. So it really outlines, that the rest of the world is really paying close attention to this. And it's like game on for, nation state adoption, right? Like the big changes that the US makes, a lot of other nations follow. So the fact that the US is now looking into this, now suddenly many other countries are looking into this. And it's just going to be, more game theory kind of at play with, nation states looking into this more deeply and potentially having strategic national Bitcoin stockpiles of their own.
It's crazy. We've been talking about this for so long, and for people in the Bitcoin ecosystem, that's inevitable. But now we're finally starting to see, yes, you can be directionally right, but wrong on the timeline. So it feels like, this is obvious to us. But now other people are seeing it. And yes, like you said, the game theory of this, it's who knows what the next 12 to 24 months are going to look like.
Yeah, one thing that I've also been thinking about is with Thanksgiving coming up, right? And me living in California, and just the nature of most California residents is that they absolutely hate Trump, right? And I think it's going to be a very interesting conversation. Like I'm preparing myself to like have a lot of these conversations with like family members and neighbors and friends and things like that about like, yes, there are a lot of things that you may not like Trump about, but simultaneously he's doing a lot of really great things for my industry. And I'm just preparing myself to like have a lot of these conversations about, it's just a good reminder that, the political landscape these days is just that everything is so black and white, or everything is so red and blue. And there is, that's not the case, right? In reality, there's certainly a lot of gray area, and there's a lot of things, even if you dislike a lot of things about Trump, which I don't blame you, right? He's kind of a weird guy, to put it, as the Democrats say. At the end of the day, like these things that he's promising are going to greatly benefit the Bitcoin and crypto industry. And it's a good conversation to have in terms of what, the Democratic Party has done to kind of weaponize, the banks against crypto and all of the, enforcement actions against these crypto companies in the US. And we're sick of it, right? And the crypto audience showed up and made their voices heard, and we have a Bitcoin president. So that's, I guess, something to look forward to. And whatever you think about Trump, it does seem that he is good for Bitcoin. So that is why we are talking about him today.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And he's also good for crypto at large with whether it's other chains or NFTs, because this is a president who has released multiple NFT projects for himself and his own coin, World Liberty Financial, a DeFi coin. So obviously he's going to be pro anything that will be to his benefit. So there's, if the prediction markets speak because people have skin in the game. Trump has skin in the game here too. He's not going to be keeping around Gary Gensler. He's going to be finding someone who's going to pump his bags.
Yeah, I thought a lot of those moves were pretty weird, actually, with the like World Liberty and everything. It seems like, why take the risk of launching or trying to do like an ICO? Basically, what's the benefit? I don't know. It felt like the risks far outweighed the benefits of doing something like that. Like we get it. You like crypto. We know that. Right? Like, you don't need to do this to prove it to us. Yeah, I thought that was a little strange, but anyway.
I think, well, I don't know. Let's move on.
That's fine. We can move on. Yeah, we've talked enough about Trump. We can move on. So, just a couple maybe smaller things, but things definitely worth mentioning. I saw a tweet, earlier this week that CBBTC, which is Coinbase's wrapped version of Bitcoin, surpassed over $1 billion in inflows. So as we look ahead towards the launch of SBTC, that's something that we're certainly looking forward to, is a lot of inflows into stacks. And kind of on a similar note, Coinbase also, the CBBTC coin launched on Solana this week. So that is now out there. So CBBTC is now issued as an SPL token, and it is backed 1-to-1 by native Bitcoin held by Coinbase. So I think we should do a show on this in the future, maybe a leather lounge or something, on all these different wrapped Bitcoin assets and sort of what the pros and cons are. And especially when you look at sort of the spectrum of decentralized versus centralized. That's something that SBTC is really trying to do, is to be a very decentralized option versus, you have these federations, which are like a little decentralized, but they're kind of also a little opaque because it's not an open federation, right? It's picked by, taking like Liquid, for example, right? It's picked by Blockstream, and, there's some form of decentralization because it's not just one party, but it's still not open and not quite as transparent. And then you have something like CBBTC or KBTC from Kraken, which are just being managed directly by the exchanges themselves. So very interesting. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, all of these are good for Bitcoin. As Coinbase says, right? It's backed 1-to-1 by native Bitcoin. So it's not just paper money, right? It's being represented on chain still. But there's certain, of course, risks involved with just one custodian handling all of this. So just something to kind of remind yourself of and be aware of. And SBTC, we know, has already been announced, is coming to Solana, Aptos as well. So we're going to see SBTC on other chains also. So that's definitely something to look forward to there.
I really like the idea of a show about the different colors, the different degrees of wrapped Bitcoin, because, like you just said, it really comes down to how centralized or decentralized it is. So what did Munib say? 4 to 6 weeks away from SBTC.
Yeah, and I think he doubled down on that this week. Or I've seen, if it wasn't Munib, I think I saw tweets from like official Stacks accounts kind of reconfirming that timeline. So it seems like we're still holding them to that. And yeah, that's just a few weeks away. That's what is it, 3 to 5 weeks now?
Yeah.
Is what it is. So yeah, exciting stuff.
And if CBBTC can surpass 1 billion in inflows in a week, that shows that the demand is there. People want to do things with their Bitcoin. Some people want to hold it for a long time, but other people want to you want to do something, and you want it to be cost effective and fast and asterisk decentralized.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely a good reminder. I think one thing Manib actually makes this comparison that I like, which is, you have like a hot wallet and a cold wallet, right? And for your cold wallet, you want to be able to hold your Bitcoin. You're going to do most of that or all of that on the L1. But in some cases, you want to spend your Bitcoin. You want to do certain things with it, right? And you want to have stuff in a hot wallet that's a little bit more sort of liquid and more easily movable. And for that, you're going to have your Bitcoin on an L2. So yeah, I like that analogy. And I think I agree. People want to do stuff with their Bitcoin. I've never spent more Bitcoin than, since ordinals came out. So there's certainly many opportunities to spend your Bitcoin. And it's not only holding, right? You want to also do stuff with it.
Well, speaking of things to spend your Bitcoin on, you want to share what your recent purchase was related to the show from last week?
Oh yeah. So I bought an ephemera kit, which is exciting. So yeah, we had, as we talked about, that really good show of Leather Lounge that Erin was on, talking a little bit more about her project. But they was at the beginning of this week, or maybe it was last week, announced support for Leather. So Leather can now connect, and you can bid and you can participate in the ephemera kits. And I am now the proud owner of an ephemera kit. So very cool stuff. Always happy to support Erin. She's awesome.
Yep. She's GOAT. All right. We made it.
We made it.
The best week for Bitcoin price. That is.
Yeah, certainly. As we're talking, a new all-time high came out during the recording of this show. I think we went up to like 77.3K or so. So take this opportunity, to just evaluate, how much Bitcoin you have, take some profits if you need to, don't get too greedy. We never give financial advice on this show, but I think that's general, just good advice to follow. So, I didn't update the time slot on here, but we do have a new time for Leather Lounge. We're kicking off season 3 of Leather Lounge, which is now going to be on Tuesdays. It's Tuesdays at, 8, 9, 10, 11 a.m. Eastern on Tuesdays. So please join us next Tuesday, and we will see you then. Do we know? Oh, we do know what's going on with that show. It's going to be on Bitcoin stamps. We're looking forward to talking about Bitcoin stamps. Very, very, again, we go back to diehard communities. Very, very solid diehard community on the Bitcoin stamp side. So I'm very excited to explore that a little bit more. And I feel like there has been a lot of updates to stamps recently that I personally have not been following quite as closely as I maybe should have. So I'm looking forward even to learning a little bit about what the current state of Bitcoin stamps is. Leather supports Bitcoin stamps. We're one of the few wallets that do. Big differentiator for us. So yeah, looking forward to that show on Tuesday.
Yep. Get your stamps bingo cards ready. Counterpart. What do you think are some other good key terms for stamps?
Well, yeah. There's stamps. Stamps has their own token protocol, which is SRC20. I'm hearing a lot about atomic swaps, and I don't know too much about what. I know what atomic swaps are, but I don't know what that means in the context of stamps. So looking forward to hearing a little bit more there. And yeah, as you said, stamps has very, very deep roots in Counterparty, which is kind of the first NFTs ever on Bitcoin. Within the first year or two of Bitcoin existing, we had Counterparty. So,
and that's the origin of rare Pepes. Is that right?
It is, yeah. So a lot of the Pepe artists, a lot of the best Pepe art, I think, is on Bitcoin stamps still, just because it has such a deep, rich history there. So, really looking forward to that space. It's going to be a fun one. Stamps community is awesome. And yeah, it's going to be another great week. Hopefully, maybe not quite as good as this week. We'll have to see. We'll see what the price of Bitcoin is.
The vibes are always better when it's a green day and a green week.
Vibes are certainly up. And yeah, so for everybody listening, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great weekend. Go touch some grass. Take some profits if you need to. And we will see you next week.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. We record Good for Bitcoin live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on X. Please follow us at Trust Machines Co. if you would like to listen and engage with us live. Visit us at trustmachines.co for all the latest Bitcoin news. We'll see you next week.